What's up, y'all? Welcome to another edition of Drivin with Doug. Always on Facebook, most of the time on YouTube, and sometimes on the IG when I can keep it the topic under 10 minutes. I am Daniel Ducksworth, of course. So today's topic is something that I'm going through right now. It's about growing old. I'm 43 years old now, and I feel every bit of it. I'm getting to that age where the body is starting to slow down a little bit. I'm starting to think about a career versus a job. I'm starting to think about grandkids. I'm starting to think about changing locations. I'm starting to think about, life, as it were. I'm starting to realize that I have many more days behind me than ahead of me. And it's a humbling experience when you start to realize that, you're reaching and approaching the end of summer in your life. And, I look back on a lot of the things I did in my 20s, and I realized I was straight reckless. And it's a lot of the things that, most, young men in their 20s do when they're in their 20s. They're straight reckless a lot of times, unless, they are raised, fairly close to the hips of their fathers, or, positive male influences. They tend to make a lot more mistakes than they do having solutions in their lives. I was very reckless growing up, and I made a lot of bad choices. Did a lot of crazy, reckless things that I probably shouldn't have done. But I been through the ringer growing up, and there are a lot of things that I shouldn't have walked out of. I went in a lot of doors, walked in confidently, and came out limping, or crawled out, so to speak. And that's one of the advantages of being a young person, right? You can bounce back a lot more quickly than you can once you get older. It gets a lot, you aren't as buoyant. You don't float as easily when you get older. Things don't come as easily to you. When I was younger, I used to be able to turn on a dime. I used to be able to think fast on my feet. And now that I'm older, I'm starting to realize that, things don't come as easy. The options, the menu isn't as grandiose as it used to be. I look at my son, who's 21 years old. He's still trying to figure out his life. He still, lives with mom, and he's still trying to decide where his life is taking him. College wasn't his best option. Military is not something for him. He's trying to decide, do I want to work full time? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? He's still trying to, feel his way around life, And at 21 years old, I was already a father. Scared shitless, trying to figure out where my next step was. And that's the thing that a lot of young adults go through in this day and age. The only thing that's changed is the generation and society. For my generation, Generation X, we were all young, but we were, forward thinking. We were trying to find our way, forge our paths at that time. We had something to prove. For my generation, for this generation, it's a little bit different. This generation was, I feel like this generation was a little more coddled coming into their own, so they kind of feel like they have a little bit more of a safety blanket, so they kind of hem and haw a little bit longer. But the age is still the same. They're still trying to figure out where their place in this world is and where the design is. But being the age I'm at now, I realize, you tend to want to listen more and talk less, but it's so hard because the voice that you have to listen to more is the one that is having the inner dialogue with your soul. And it's hard to listen to that inner dialogue, because the inner dialogue, sometimes you got to try and figure out if it's the higher powers that be or if it's coming from your heart. Because when your heart speaks, sometimes it's biased. When your brain speaks, that's the most logical piece of you that you have, but it's not always what you want to hear. That's the thing about age. With age comes wisdom, but a lot of people don't use the wisdom that they're given, because wisdom comes from experience, and experience changes from person to person. Some people have the age, but not the wisdom nor the experience, and that varies by environment. Two people can be the same age and live in two different environments, which means their experiences are going to be different. So they won't have the same wisdom. Some people are book smart, some people are street smart. So you give two people the same problem, they're going to have two different answers on how to solve that problem. When you look at what people go through by design, everybody has their own way of dealing with things, right? I was just talking to a friend of mine last night, and you look at, situations on the whole over life. You can talk about your life experience and the things you've gone through. You'll look back over everything and you realize, I probably shouldn't have done that. I wish I had never done this. I wish I had never said that. And you come back with this whole system of regret. And yes, it may have made you who you are, but you feel like if I had taken that one step sooner or that one step later, I may have had everything I ever wanted. If I, opened this door and shut that one behind me, or if I had shut that door and then went into this side door, I would have never had this situation happen, and I'd be all the better for it. And the not knowing is what kills you, or what makes you cynical and bitter, and what makes you angry with life and feel like you're owed something going forward for what feels like an eternity. And it is so hard to navigate around that bitterness, that anger, that sorrow that sits in the pit of your stomach for what feels like ages, because you don't understand. As you've gotten older with experience, you don't understand how, now that you're older, how you could have missed that mark, especially when you're in a different situation now, and every time you circle back around to that one moment that sticks in your mind where you realize, hey, now I see it. Because if I had stopped at that checkpoint or done that particular thing, things would be entirely different, and this would not be my life. This would not be me. This would not be where I'm at, and I would be all the better for it. And that's what makes it hard to be who you are. I remember when I was a young buck, I was in my 20s, and I used to go out to the clubs all the time. I was always that guy, going to the clubs, dancing, hanging out, having a good time, picking up chicks, whatever. And there was always this guy that I would see. He was in his 40s, maybe a little older, and he was always trying to pick up the chicks that were my age, sometimes even a little younger. And I would look at him, and the chicks would dance with him. Some of them thought he was funny or whatever, but I would always hear them talking about him behind his back. He thought he was King Suave. He thought he was the shit. But in reality, they were just making fun of him. Sometimes I'd catch him on the late night at Denny's, These chicks would be taking him for all his money. He'd be buying their dinners and stuff like that. He really thought he had it. And I promised myself, and I even told my friends at the time, I said, you know what? One thing I'll never be is I'll never be that guy. I never want to be the 40-year-old guy at the club. That's not going to be me. I won't be doing that shit. Trying to pick up on the friggin' 20-somethings at the club, at the bar. Trying to act well below my age. When I'm in my 40s, I'm going to be in my 40s, and that's it. It's going to be me. And that's stuck with me all these years later. And now that I'm in my 40s, shit, my body couldn't keep up with that anyways, with that life. And I'm too old for that. And I always think back to that. I'm proud of the age I am, and the things that I've done, maybe I'm not so proud of those things. But at the same time, I realize that there are some mistakes that I've made, and I've made many of them. But at the same time, there's still some life left in me, and there will be more mistakes to come, but I just need to make less of them. And we all have our fair share of learning left to do, so that we can make less and less, and let the far fewer days ahead of us be better than the best days that are behind us. And the experiences that we have going forward to be shared with the best of the best people that we can find. Because as we grow and we evolve as we get older, that wisdom becomes timeless, and we can share that wisdom with those that come after us. Because sharing that wisdom is what's going to propel those that we love to become better than we were when we were their age. Those are the things that we try and instill in our children. That's what creates a legacy, so that we can give our children a jumping off point to become better than we ever were. Because you never want to leave your children in a lurch, or your descendants in a lurch. You want to give them something better, let them become something better. You don't want them to be proud of being less than what you were. You don't want to leave your descendants or your children a mess to inherit. You don't want them to be proud of being half-assed. That's just crazy talk. That shouldn't happen ever. The people you surround yourself with, the team you surround yourself with, if you have 6 people in your support staff, your team, that are a whole hot mess, chances are you're the 7th. If you have 6 people around you that talk about getting money, guess what? You're the 7th person that's going to talk about getting money. If you have 6 people around you that are talking about doing nothing but bullshitting all day and hanging out, guess what? You're going to be the 7th person talking about bullshitting and hanging out all day. You see what I'm saying? If you sleep with dogs, you're going to get fleas. It's real simple. You know what I'm saying? If you keep your shit clean and tidy, guess what? Those around you are going to want to step their game up and keep their shit clean and tidy. If you let those around you be a hot mess, guess what? You're going to be a hot mess. You can't just talk about it, you got to be about it. The older you get, you got to step your game up in commensurate with your age. You know and you grow. Maya Angelou said, if you knew better, you do better. As you get older, you have to continue to do as such, because if you don't, there's a generation behind you watching you. So you have to grow, and so they will follow your lead. If you're not leading, that's the blind leading the blind. Very simple, not difficult. But it's just me thinking. That's it. This has been another edition of Drivin with Doug. Hey, you like this video, on Facebook, hashtag DRIVINWITHDUCK. Find me on YouTube, Drivin, no G, with Duck. Instagram, same thing, hashtag Drivin with Duck. I wish you all the best day, the absolute best weekend. Enjoy it. Love and light, my friends. Peace. Love yourselves. Eat each other.